Hello there, this is Charles D. Shell, writer, artist, and journal loudmouth. This video is about metagaming as pertains to role-playing games. And essentially what metagaming is, if for those of you who don't know, it's using player knowledge as a character that the character can possibly have, or is unlikely to have. Basically, it's access to knowledge outside of the scope of the game, which could be anything from, hey, if you're going through a module, for instance, like, hey, I read through this module, I know we don't want to pull that lever, we're all going to die, right? It happens from time to time, even with the best players, and there's a pretty wide range of it. An example, let's say a player has knowledge of a particular monster that you run into in, say, a D&D game, and you know this particular monster is immune to fire. Now let's say this character has no way of knowing that, but the player does. So the player who's, say, he's been playing a wizard, been casting fireballs all night, suddenly decides he's not going to cast fireballs because he knows it won't do any good against this. That would be a classic metagame sort of cheat. And it can go from mildly annoying to downright annoying. But it's not metagaming, even though according to a lot of purists is bad, it is not necessarily a bad thing. I think my rule of thumb depends on how much damage to fun it's going to cause in the game. If it's going to if having this knowledge is going to wreck the game, it's going to derail the session, causes things to go poorly for anyone else, then it's a bad thing. If it's not really going to have much of an effect, or it might have a positive effect where everyone has a better time, I don't have a huge problem with that. Some people do, I don't. Because metagaming can do things such as help enhance verisimilitude. For instance, say a game master is running a modern day game and he has one of the bad guys is opening fire with an M16A2, and he says, well, he's going to fire full auto and shoot all you guys. Well, one of the players, like me, could go, hey, M16A2 does not have a fully automatic setting. If it's unmodified, it just has a 3-round burst. I'll say the game master didn't know that, so he goes, oh, okay, I didn't realize that, so he could just fire a 3-round burst. And this is not necessarily going to damage the game a whole lot, especially if other people are armed with M16A2s, and it'll even out. If the bad guys can't do it, neither can the good guys. So, and plus the fact it gives a little bit more feeling of realism. It's not a huge deal. It's just sort of positive metagaming, even though that's technically not knowledge that the character might have, would help enhance the game. As I said before, some bad versions of metagaming would be to have read, if somebody's going through a pre-done module and they have already read it, just going through and disarming all the traps or knowing exactly what monsters are where, preparing themselves ahead of time for that particular instance, bad. I think I tend to err on the side of caution as far as using metagame knowledge, but it can keep the fun from being derailed. For instance, suppose metagame knowledge, even though your character shouldn't have it, will keep the entire party from, at the end of a long campaign, just when they're about to finish, it keeps it from being completely destroyed by having the whole group wiped out, or not having a particular bit of knowledge, or whatever. And I mean, you could be completely honest and not have your character do anything, and just have the whole thing come to a smoldering wreck at the bottom of a crevasse. But does that really help? Does that enhance anyone's fun experience? Is the big question. Risk is fine, but just have a sunk cost that ends in disaster, I would say is a perfectly legitimate use of some metagaming knowledge. And this technically the game master could do something similar, but that's not really metagaming. That's just being a good game master. And you could say something along the lines of, the rule of thumb is, does it enhance the gaming experience or does it not? If it does, have some leeway. If it doesn't, don't have leeway. Enforce the rules there. I tend to be As I said before, I tend to err on the side of caution. I also tend to be scrupulously honest as a general rule as a player. And I mean, you can ask other players that because they've seen me roll and they know I don't roll well. They also have seen me give knowledge to the game master that could easily kill me several times over. If I happen to say, well, no, this spell doesn't actually work the way you think it does. It's not going to protect me from this damage, and I'll take full damage. I do that quite often, just because that's how I play. As a game master, I'll play it kind of fast and loose, but as a player, I generally keep the metagaming to myself, unless it's sort of like, hey, I don't want this entire session to end in a smoldering heap. Anyway, please rate this video, even if you hate it. Subscribe button is right down here. Also, links to my novels, my e-novels, are down here, so please go buy them. And I'll catch you guys later.